3 million years ago, when the crustal plates under the Pacific and Atlantic collided, from out of that fiery birth came one of the most dynamic and beautiful junctures on Earth. And almost in the center of that bridge, the country of Costa Rica. Even today, for much of the year, clouds drape its backbone of mountains that stretch into deep valleys and over a dozen different climate zones, each with its own combination of temperature and rainfall and seasons. An astounding diversity of climate and terrain that incubates almost 1 million different plant and animal species in a place the size of West Virginia. And from where new life forms are still emerging. On September 8, 1502, Christopher Columbus took refuge off this coast. For 17 days he walked into this world while making repairs to his ships damaged in a storm. He wrote the natives were friendly, treated him well. Today, you and I will walk into much the same world. It is not paradise, yet close enough to be magical. Three and a half million people live in Costa Rica, about a third in San Jose, protected by the city police. Each morning, these men and women face a daunting job. This country has no standing army. It was eliminated over 50 years ago in a dramatic move for peace. So they have to detour not only local crime, but help hold the line against international drug smuggling and all kinds of other threats. But by nature and tradition, Costa Ricans like to avoid conflict, and a special unit of bicycle police have been very effective patrolling this capital city of over 1 million. Downtown San Jose doesn't have the grand old colonial structures of other capital cities in Latin America. It does have an impressive national theater, though. A surprisingly beautiful post office, a few museums, modern buildings, and traffic. Vehicles can clog the street corners. But San Jose is mainly a city of bus riders and walkers, not afraid to assert their rights. Since costs of food, education, and healthcare are surprisingly reasonable, it costs less to live in San Jose than almost any city its size in the world. Costa Rica is Central America's most stable democracy. For quality of life and the money, it rates the highest of any country. One reason why 30,000 Americans live here, and why another 30,000 have come from other countries. An interesting place to visit downtown is the indoor Central Market. Its century-old maze of stalls carry everything. Almost always crowded with people searching for all kinds of bargains, from clothing and trinkets to the freshest meats and fruits and vegetables, even medicinal herbs. It's also a place for many downtown workers to lunch at the counters. Weekends are for gathering, first at church and then at the parks. Zarcero and Sarchi, two of the little towns in the hills north of San Jose, have personalities of their own. In front of the church in Zarcero is a park, turned into a whimsical garden In Sarchi, they say long ago a woman grew tired of asking her husband to paint the house, so she threw paint all over his ox cart. And today in this town, they take ox cart painting seriously. The Cheveri family has been making and painting carts for 4 generations. It's the largest, most successful, and best-known ox cart factory for almost 100 years. Along the road into town, other artistic furniture makers make wood furniture. In fact, the development of artisans, along with the popularity of the designs, has made Sarchi the arts and crafts center of the country. We're headed to Gayabo. Northeast, the rugged Central Mountains hide Borillo Carrillo National Park. A train ride takes us from our car. Another ride lifts us into a world few humans ever see. High above the jungle floor into the rainforest canopy, gliding on an aerial tram through the home of 2/3 of all rainforest species. Here we can peer into the densely leafed canopy where new species are still being discovered. Below us, Adolfo, who manages the reserve, and Danielle, a guide, both have educated themselves about this place, understanding how this enormous tree actually lives a fragile existence since there are so few. North American forests have about 15 species of trees. Here there are 600. But unlike the North, where fewer species are in greater quantity, here many more types exist, but fewer numbers. Bullet ants. The bite of this 1.5-inch long ant is considered the most painful sting in nature. Just one can cause a blackout in humans. And other life, less threatening, reveal themselves on and around the leaves. Some look just like the leaves, an effective camouflage many insects use, which is just one reason guides advise to carefully watch where you touch. The top of the rainforest, this great vaulted canopy, doesn't hide the riches of this country. It is the riches of the country. For while in the north, 80% of the nutrients are in the ground, here, 80% of the nutrients are stored up here in the trees and plants. A factory of green without which nothing would survive, including people. Nearby people lived in these rainforests 1,000 years before Christ. Not the Maya of Belize and Guatemala. Theirs was a different culture, and it lasted about 2,500 years. They built incredibly engineered stone roads going several miles through the forest, connecting this city to others. What's left is now protected and called the Gayabo National Monument. Stone foundations on which they built their homes. They created the top from a special palm leaf, the strong bark of the borillo tree. Inside these beautifully structured places, they decided the political, economic, and religious matters of their society. Now, only the foundations are exposed, their faces unknown. But faces of another sort and another time are still seen at festivals. Early summer, week-long celebrations make their way through the different villages, customs rooted in history no one remembers. And the families come to the town square for an afternoon of fun and watching the traditional folk dancing, now performed by professional Costa Rican folkloric troupes. perhaps more touristy than traditional, nonetheless, the Camboody and the Botahuela Tamborito has evolved into a performance that today's Ticos appreciate. A little west, in Oratina, park is dedicated to those handsome lizards, the green iguanas. Green iguanas are becoming popular even in the United States for pets. And no wonder, they're adorable. Well, maybe not adorable, but somehow appealing to many people, especially when they're young. Inside the compound is where they keep the big ones. Full-grown iguanas of 5 years grow to be 4 to 6 feet long. These dragon-like lizards are surprisingly gentle, social, and vegetarian. They eat only plants, fruits, veggies. Above us, headed for the trees, scarlet macaws. These gorgeous birds are becoming harder to find in the country. They're not being eaten, but rather threatened by poachers and logging the forests. But this park and a few other places have been providing them a chance to multiply and live pretty undisturbed. North is the village of La Fortuna. This village is also overlooked by a mountain range. The forest around La Fortuna is filled with other birds, like these woodpeckers. But around the end of July in 1968, everything was disturbed. The sky turned dark, the forest started smoking and steaming, and suddenly one of the heavily wooded mountains exploded, and the country's most active volcano, Arenal, was born. And now over 2 square miles of land have been changed from farmland to volcanic landscape. Of Costa Rica's 9 active volcanoes, Arenal is the busiest, almost continually active, still dangerous. Lava still flows down the sides. In 1973, Arenal's fresh water created a new lake, and it's a favorite for all kinds of birds like this tiger heron. A few years ago, some fishermen claimed a serpent surfaced with a belching roar, then slid back in the water, his tail over 6 feet long. The monster of Lake Arenal is entrenched in the folklore. Close to Arenal, the surreal beauty of the Monteverde Cloud Forest Biological Reserve. It's one of the most popular tourist sites in the country. A birder's paradise. Over 400 species are here, including 30 different types of hummingbirds. From the mountains of Monteverde, we head northwest on a potholed, windy road to the province of Costa. Welcome to Texas. About 50 years ago, they cut down the forests and planted trees, magnificent Costa trees. Cattle ranches still dot the landscape, and cowboys work those ranches. Everybody rides a horse. And it's really interesting to see the cowboys using all the skills we think of from the old American West and taking care of those horses. Roping them, keeping them groomed and cleaned. Once this was part of the most extensive tropical dry forest in the Pacific coast. ran all the way from Mexico to Panama. After it was cut down, it became McDonald's country. At least McDonald's beef country. Since 1986, through conservation, the dry forest remnants have been expanding over the old pastures and fields. Liberia is a laid-back cowboy town. Its white buildings, the results of original residents who carried white volcanic gravel from a nearby volcano. Ingenuity is part of the Costa Rican tradition. Never being subjected to dictators like other Central American countries, Costa Ricans also have another long tradition of independence and democracy. Now part of Santa Rosa National Park, a hacienda called La Casona, where in 1856, 200 men under their leader, an American named William Walker, were camped. Now, Walker had seized power in Nicaragua and was trying to take over Costa Rica to force the people to build canals from the Pacific to the Atlantic. 5,000 Costa Ricans from all social classes fought back. Here at the big house at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it was guns against pitchforks, guns against machetes. Half the Costa Ricans lost their lives in the fight. But after a mere 15 minutes of bitter fighting, it was all over. Even though Walker escaped, La Casona, still with its original stone corrals and artifacts, stands a silent witness to an important part of Costa Rican history. Long ago, legends say an old woman once lived on one of the slopes of these mountains. Her house was called the Old Woman's Corner, Rica de la Vieja. Today, Rica de la Vieja is a national park, protecting 9 separate volcanoes and 4 completely separate ecosystems. Trails lead through the forest to fumaroles and vapor geysers. In fact, this is Costa Rica's Yellowstone, with 20 acres of hot springs and boiling mud pots. Geothermic activity continually active with geysers of sulfur dioxide, and you have to be careful walking around this, some of the thinnest of the Earth's crusts. So let's fly. Okay, now it's our turn. Ready? Sit down. Comfortable? 3, 2, 1. Here goes. Don't look down. You don't want to look down. Here it comes, the next platform. There, that wasn't so bad. They've taken the fear of flying and made it fun. In Dos Rios, the elementary school, relatively new, it's become the focal point for this isolated community. Recently, a middle school has been built, and hopefully by the time these children are ready, they'll have a high school also.
Es que su hija no ha salido al padre. Es muy seria. De pequeñita.
This lunch program gives many of these children from very rural and simple homes a chance to have one hot meal a day, besides learning the reading and writing and about the world around them. Regular dental care has recently been added to the school's agenda, something the village has never had. And they also hope to start a health program. In fact, they have many plans, so when these children graduate, they might be able to use their skills to improve the life in their village instead of having to move away. The need to protect the land can become a deep attraction in the hearts and minds of many who spend even a little time here. The allure of its beauty, to be drawn into it, become one with it, and want it to survive intact. It's a powerful pull, this feeling. It's what Ticos call pura vida, the pure life. West of Punta Arenas and Tortuga Island. The most important town on the Pacific is the little port city of Punta Arenas. Over 90 boats belong to the Small Fishing Boat Association, who bring in their catch each day to the fish market. 80% of the local people still make their living from the sea. This colorful little port town was colonized by the Spanish back in the 1500s. South along the Pacific coast is Las Pumas, Jaco, and Manuel Antonio. Costa Rica has some of the longest breaking waves left in the world. Call it Big Sur, Hawaii, whatever. The surfing at Dominical and Jaco has been drawing surfers for years. Waves not as large as the monsters in Hawaii, but in some places a half-mile long. Cabos is the stopping-off point to Manuel Antonio, Costa Rica's first and best-known national park. And the country's fanciest hotels line the road because it's a popular tourist destination, as well as a biological oasis. It's a small park created in 1972, 2,000 acres of land and 136,000 acres of water. This area was once logged, but they used selective extraction, cutting the high-quality lumber without clear cutting. Now it's in a regeneration process. Where the beaches can again nourish creatures like centerguard lizards, another type of iguana that eats only the flowers and leaves of certain trees. And further down the path, an agouti. The Valle de la General is one of Costa Rica's natural jewels, and we're headed for its largest town, San Isidro. The government opened up this land in the 30s. Then it was jungle, but people from Cartago came, settled, and got free land to start making a living. Initially, it was very isolated from San Jose, but when the Pan American Highway was built after World War II, it started to expand, and now it's the commercial center for a large agricultural area. San Isidro's market's a reflection of the variety of fresh fruits and vegetables that grow in the area. South of San Isidro, coffee fields planted in the hills line the Central Pacific Road. Highway 2 also takes us by giant machines. They're spraying mile after mile of pineapple fields. This is Costa Rica's fruit basket. Pineapples are an important export. We head south for the Indian village of Rica, and then on to Golfito. The southern part of Costa Rica is not visited by as many tourists as the north. And that's too bad, because the south seems different. The Palmar River winds its way, and above it, we're on our way to an isolated mountain village. In the 1500s, within a very short period of time after the early Spaniards came, almost all the indigenous people were gone. decimated by disease and slavery. The few left stay hidden in the hills. Only 9,000 remain. They've assimilated the religion of the Spanish into their own traditional beliefs. They've also assimilated the sport of Central America into their school curriculum. From west coast to east, to the Caribbean side of the country, Puerto Limon and Cahuita. Our little plane takes us over the Talamanca Mountains, one of the most remote areas in the country, mostly still unexplored. The eastern shoreline is what Columbus must have seen when he came here 500 years ago. They say he actually anchored his ship at Uvita Island, now just off the coast of the city of Limon. And ships still come to this city to carry bananas and other fruit exports around the world. But the park still commemorates its first European celebrity. This is a different Costa Rica. African Caribbeans immigrated here around 1825 to fish and hunt turtles, and stayed. The people here turn their eyes to the sea. They speak English, enjoy reggae music, and relate to the other islands in the Caribbean. But Limon is a real mixed bag of cultures. Its cemetery reflects a heavy Chinese influence. They came originally to work on the Atlantic Railroad. North to the Tortuguero region, Tortuguero Village, and Cañas Palma. In Costa Rica's Amazons, these mangrove estuaries nurture all kinds of creatures, frigate birds, three-toed sloths, all part of this intricate and infinite weaving of life. This part of Costa Rica has remained relatively untouched. Almost 3 million years of uninterrupted nature. And 47,000 acres of this paradise has been set aside as a national park. Towering 11,000 feet over Tortuguero is the Sierra de la Muerte, the Mountain of Death. Down one of the fog-shrouded sides is a narrow wooded valley. Here grows the aguatilla tree. Its little avocado-like fruit, the only food eaten by the rarest of all birds in Central America, the legendary resplendent quetzal. Since the time of the Maya and Aztecs, this bird has been searched out. Its brilliant red and green feathers used in royal garments for kings and queens. Because the tree still survives, so does the bird. We're thrilled to find one, learn it's making a modest comeback, may not turn into a statistic. Which says a lot about this unique universe and all that's in it. It's billions of heartbeats, large, small, human, animal, plant, entwined, interdependent. Here, it's still possible, if you're willing, to connect with one of the most important parts of the breathing soul of our planet, Costa Rica.